I don't know. Does it do it? Hello, boys and girls, children of all ages. Thank you for coming out to a special edition of Rolling with Sisyphus. This time it's Rolling Without Sisyphus. I'll be your host tonight, DocGriffon. Of course, our guest, the one that you tuned in to see, is Aydin Paladin, who I like to call, she is not a YouTube academic. She's an actual YouTube scholar.
Shit.
And I just wanted to explain real quick. There was a family emergency with Sisyphus, and he had to bail out. It may take more than one show, but he has promised that he will return. We'd like to thank everybody on Twitter who gave him well wishes, and I'm sure he'll be back up in the saddle in no time. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, please put your electronic hands together, and maybe feet too, for Aydin Paladin.
Hey guys, how's it going? Well, guys in the chat, DocGriffon, you alone in the Hangouts. I'm hearing a little bit of a echo.
Are you getting an echo?
Yeah, I don't know if that's Hangouts or what, because it can be super annoying.
Let's try here. Yes, I've explained a couple times. I'm super not tech savvy. Are you getting an echo now?
No, good now.
Okay, cool. Now, of course, we do have a Q&A session for everybody in the chat. We're going to hold that until the end of the show. But honestly, I would like to start off with just a basic question of what territory did you grow up in? What region of the U.S.?
I guess a long story as short as possible. All over the East Coast sort of region. I was born in Virginia. When I was very young, we moved to West Virginia. I lived there for most of my childhood. And then we moved to Baltimore. And then I got my undergrad in Ohio. And I've been back in West Virginia ever since to finish my master's and PhD.
Now, were you a brat?
A what?
A military brat.
Oh, no.
To do all the moving.
No, but although my dad did work for the government.
Oh. Did you get free cheese?
I wish. I always heard about that government free cheese. We never got any. He did get paid, though. So
it is very magical. Now, without going into what he was doing, did that tie in with what your current profession is now? Was it like an inspiration?
Oh, absolutely. I think my dad's probably one of the biggest, if not the single biggest influence on my life in so many ways. He directly told me to start the YouTube channel because at the time I was on sabbatical from working at the university. I was because of health stuff, and I was just pissed. It was right around the time of the 2016 election.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just text him all day because he was the only conservative person I knew. Pretty much. So I'd just be like, angrily texting my dad, like, did you fucking see this shit that they said about Trump today? And, and he basically said to me, why don't, instead of screeching at me, you go and screech into the void of the internet? I said, fine. All right, I'll do that.
Well, and I would say pretty much you've got a very loyal following, but one of the big reasons why I wanted to get you onto the show was the fact that you've got a double life. You've got your YouTube and you have your academic pursuits as well. Can you talk a little bit about how you got into the field that you're in?
I actually told this story the other day to the friends I'm hanging out here with, so I'll tell it again. When I was in high school, I only ever fucked up and failed one assignment, or I didn't even fail. I got a D. I'd always been, the perfect grade, kind of one of those people. And basically what happened is there was a portion of this assignment that said, okay, you write a persuasive essay and then you have to go report on it in front of the class. And I said, I'd rather fail than talk in public. So
that's ironic.
Took the L on that, right? Right. Well, actually, there's research on this. It's interesting. But so I went to my undergrad as a pre-law major, and the first thing they had me signed up for was to take in my first semester a public speaking class. And I
Yep.
thought, oh shit, I'm going to fail out of college my first semester, or at least I'm going to fail a class. How am I going to get past this?
Well, now you know that the number one phobia in the Western civilization is not the fear of death, it's the fear of public speaking.
Actually, we reconduct those surveys every year, and they go about back and forth. But yeah, it tends to be one or the other.
What, did
And
death come back?
death is always, it's in the running over public speaking.
I know it always beats spiders.
It definitely beats spiders. I mean, the spiders, I guess, can lead to death. But yeah, public speaking is because of the outcomes it can have that are worse than death, I guess.
I agree. Yeah.
Because you die, it's over, right?
Oh, sure.
You have to live with public speaking.
Comedians die 1,000 deaths. The hero only one.
Pretty much. And when I went online to look at the professor on the Rate My Professor site of the guy who's going to teach the public speaking class, it was this guy who had terrible ratings. It was, he's the worst teacher ever. He's never given an A to anybody in his life. They really hated this guy. Said he was the harshest motherfucker. So again, I'm like, oh, great. And I'll tell you what, he was very hard. He was an ex-Jesuit priest who decided, though, to leave the priesthood because he, in his words, more or less, paraphrasing, I met a woman I wanted to fuck, so I said, screw the priesthood.
There you go.
And
I like that kind of moral compass.
I like that guy, too. I actually still respect him a lot. If he's not dead, let's hope not, but he might be. He was pretty old. He really made me work for one of the first times in my life at really working at something I was not inherently good at. And at the end of that semester, I did get an A, and I immediately switched my major to communication studies because I realized what I was really passionate about was understanding this thing that I knew nothing about. And I had another really excellent professor my sophomore year who introduced me to comm research and social science research. It was the first time I'd ever been in a class, my entire undergrad experience, where a teacher would get up in front of us and just cite research the way that I do, where I'll say like, oh, that was, I don't know, so-and-so 1997. And I was astounded. I was blown away. That's so cool.
Are you talking about recitation from memory?
Recitation of citations.
Okay.
So I know exactly what it is from memory. And that was just interesting to me to find somebody who knew exactly what the fuck they were talking about. And so I wanted to learn more, and I just became fascinated and delving into research. And that's how I became passionate about it, was something that I inherently I struggle to understand, which is human communication, because it's something I do have problems with. And it became the most fascinating thing to me for that. Yeah, I think for that reason.
So to be a little more specific for those fans who haven't followed you or have only heard a little bit about, what is your specific field?
My undergrad degrees are in organizational communications, public relations, and psychology. My master's degree is in communication studies, and my PhD would be in communication studies with an emphasis on media psychology and group communication or intergroup psychology. What that means is I study the way people use media to communicate, and predominantly, and I also study how people communicate across various different groups. And the more I came to study intergroup, the more I came to realize it kind of describes all existence, at least all human existence.
Well, yes. And honestly, one of my big sticking points, and I've had debates back and forth with people, is about how society is degrading because there are fewer face-to-face, and it's becoming more of an anon culture.
We don't necessarily see negatives in that, though.
Really?
No. So Walther, 1992, is the hyperpersonal model of computer-mediated communication, which pretty simply states that, along with the social information processing theory, that yes, communication online is different, and there can be all kinds of negative effects, such as Zimbardo. That's going to be what's the seminal on Zimbardo? That's going to be the 69 study of the effects of de-individuation, anonymity, of being overwhelmingly negative. We hurt other people when we're anonymous. But Walther and et al. Find very disparate results. Not just Walther, but also Diner and who is a side model. The fact of the matter is that we can actually have really positive effects from the internet, in that it causes us to form relationships faster and more intensely with people because we lack the disinhibiting factors that we have in face-to-face communication. So a lot of the early online research found, for example, that people would be involved in this is, I think, a Diner study, although I don't have the exact citation. See, I'm fucking up. But
that's allowed here.
Sometimes there's so many of them, and this one actually, I'm not sure the exact citation on this though, but I should know it. Was that when they asked people on online dating, they basically were just taking a poll of online dating, and they found all these people who were who were married, who were reported being happily married, and yet at the same time were involved in sometimes dozens of incredibly in-depth romantic online relationships with other people. And when we polled them on that, they often said that, I love my wife, I'd never leave her, or my husband. But my relationships with people online are so much stronger because I can tell them anything. And they won't judge me.
I could see where the anonymity would kick in for there. My personal issue, and honestly, not a scholar, nowhere close to an academic, is the fact that there seems to be a societal communication breakdown when people actually do get IRL.
You know what? It's interesting. There was have you seen the X-Files at all? Familiar with it? It's like a cultural phenomenon. So
I watched the original series. Yeah.
In the new series, which I think it's okay.
I can't do it. I'm sorry. I just can't do it.
There was an episode, though, of the most recent season that was pretty much about this. There's almost no words spoken in the entire episode. I really wish they had done it a little bit more stylistically, like Triangle, which is an episode from the original series where they it's all shot in one take, or like the postmodern Prometheus, the one that's all done like a 1950s monster movie. I wish if you want to stick to a theme, you have to stick to it.
Sure.
So they fucked up a little bit because there are words exchanged, or if it had only been that the only thing they said to each other was Mulder and Scully, each other's names, that would have been okay. But they do end up talking. The episode is about the disconnect that you're talking about, though, right? And do you remember Tay, the Twitter bot that Google released and killed?
Yeah.
They use that as sort of a basis of the episode of what if AI really went rogue. And there's an episode of the X-Files that already exists. It's Kill Switch, season 4 or season 3, one or the other, that already had that in it. And I remember when watching this new episode that there's actually Ghost in the Machine, which is an episode from the first season. I'm a big X-Files fan.
I kind of got that hint.
But basically, the idea is that Mulder doesn't tip his shitty automated sushi waiter at a totally automized sushi restaurant. And so all of the AI descend down upon them. And the whole time, none of them are really Mulder and Scully are never really communicating. They're on their phones the whole time. They're, sitting there laughing at different things. And we've all had this experience, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't think that it necessarily has anything to do with a breakdown in society. I just think that episode is a good exemplar of this fear we have that technology is degrading social interaction in some way.
I'm just of a layman's ilk, but I find myself, and this is driving me nuts. I'm finding myself trying to speak smarter to you.
No, I can. My that's just my way of talking. I can talk a little bit more simplistically. Hang on. Let me pour myself a shot. That'll work.
You know
That'll
what?
slow it down.
Yeah, let's go ahead and pause. Everybody out there in the chat, please do make sure you have your adult poison of choice, whether it be liquid or vapor. And please join us with a quick shot. Oh, by the way, this bout of my alcoholism is brought to you by New Amsterdam Alcohol, the kind of alcohol you want to drink when you really don't want to spend a lot of money.
Wow, that's not too bad. I don't think they're that bad. I mean, yeah, what are we drinking? Luxosoya. Again, my drink of choice is Sobieski, but didn't have any.
Mine, honestly, which I haven't even made enough money in the past 3 years to afford, is a bottle of Blanton's.
What is that?
Whiskey.
I'm not. See, I like some whiskey, but
Kentucky bourbon that is smooth, very, very smooth. It's one of those ones where people will yell at you if you try to put it on ice because it's already that kind of smooth.
What you do to that is you get one of those giant ice cubes because of the more surface area, or the surface area ratio. I don't exactly know. I'm not that kind of scientist. So anyway, the surface area of it means it so that it sort of dissolves slower and it dilutes the whiskey less quickly. Or you can get those. I have to have things cold, even wine that's not supposed to be served cold. Well,
that's why you have a freezer. You put the bottle in the freezer
of course,
and pour.
Yes. There you go.
See, I got my bachelor's degree in alcoholism when I was about 18.
Oh, I didn't start working on mine until exactly 21 because I'm a good girl. I had never had a drip, a sip, maybe a sip from like at some family thing. Well, I mean, I had communion wine, I guess. Whoops. Outside of that, I'd never had any alcohol until I was 21. And even then, the shit I would get was absolute garbage. I would just buy the cheapest, shittiest stuff.
Now, are you talking about wine or are you talking about beer?
Oh, I'm not a beer drinker. I've never enjoyed beer. It's heavy. It makes me like feel full, and I'm not looking for that feeling.
Yeah, being a cork popping beverage, so to speak.
Oh no, I like the hard liquors. I always have been. I mean, maybe it's because I'm Irish and Welsh. I don't know.
Hey, now, I'm both Welsh and Native American. So.
Oh no, you don't want to fuck with that native thing.
Yeah, we're both sides of my family are literally too drunk to care.
Yeah, we don't really. Whenever my dad was telling me that he one time asked his father, no, he asked his grandmother about her family, and she said, "What the fuck do you want to?" Well, I'm sure she didn't say "fuck." That was me adding emphasis. What do you want to know about them for? They're a bunch of drunks. Basically, what I know about that side of my family, is that they just laid around drunk on this continent for about 300 years. They've been here for forever.
But hey, they had a hobby.
They did. That's true.
Now, of course, what is the worst swill that you've ever had?
Oh God. Well, okay. This is the absolute worst. A couple years ago, I got really into making my own mead and wine. I thought this will be fun.
Oh no.
So I bought a carboy from the local Kroger's, and then I didn't have the valve for the top because I was going to ferment it so that it'd have little bubbles in it a little bit.
Gotcha.
I didn't have the valve. I didn't have enough time in my head for some reason to wait 2 days to start making this, to go to Amazon and buy one for fucking $2. So I went online, I read that if you put a helium balloon on the top, that'll work the same way as anything else.
Really?
I read that online. And apparently it does work. But if any condensation gets inside of the balloon and drips down into the carboy,
Okay.
it now tastes like a balloon.
Uh,
So I made watermelon. What it essentially was, let's be honest, not watermelon, grapefruit, prison wine. I made grapefruit prison wine, and I took a big old swig of it, and it tastes like eating a balloon. And I was still like, but I made it, so I can't just throw it away. So I did try to get some down, and I did have like a whole drink of it. Oofed.
wait a minute. You didn't actually try to finish off that whole batch of Pruno, did you?
No. I had tried to finish a glass of it, and then I was like, "There's no way, I'm gonna vomit." Real quick, here is in the chat. I know we do a Q&A at the end, but I usually do look at it. You're asking what the difference is between communication and media psychology. Huge difference. Communication studies is a very misunderstood area of research and study and all kinds of things because it's an umbrella term. So communication studies is different. Be very clear that there is no S at the end of communication there. If it has an S at the end, it's communications studies, then it's a journalism degree. Communication studies are things that are concerned with family interpersonal communication, romantic communication, what else? Intergroup conflict. Oh, man, there's so many things. But media psychology, well, okay. Actually, the reason I like comm is because it exists at this very cool juncture between sociology, psychology, social psychology, and other fields that are a bit more esoteric. And comm is really cool for that because it allows us to draw from all fields. I wish there was more interdisciplinary communication between these fields. Media psychology is a pretty specific area of research that is predominantly focused with how does the media affect psychology. Particularly in comm, we might call it media communication. We have in the NCA and ICA now both, we have a game studies division, we have a media studies division. These are all essentially what we talk about, or what I talk about when I mean media psychology. So it's not so much that they're different, it's that they're overlapping fields.
Now, someone else in the chat brings up a good point. Skydancer was saying that they knew someone who is in comm studies who is basically a professional feminist. Would you say that your field of study draws in a particular type of political activist?
Let me put it this way. We have a national and international convention every year.
Okay.
People travel in packs. Of course we do. We're pack animals. But even at conventions like this, we travel in packs. So what I am and what people in my area do is what's called quantitative empirical post-positivism. Not everybody in my department is a quantitative scholar. So we have we have like 2 qualitative people. We're all empirical post-positivists. And by that, I mean we derive all of what we publish and do on observable evidence that can be quantified, meaning counted in some way.
Okay.
Well, that's the quantitative side. We do require falsification, though, as well. That's the post-positivist side. I have seen, because you go look into your book of what's going to happen today at the convention, and it's like Latin experiences in women's something or other. And I have, just for funsies, gone to some of those panels. And you can see the difference between that and the rest of these stuffy nerds that are outside. All the people who are just... Oh, and this brings up a good point. Because we've done surveys at these national and international conventions where we've asked all the comm people, do you have about their proclivity towards... we basically give them a Likert type instrument that is a, press or choose 1 for not like me at all, and 5 if it's exactly like me, and then the 4 numbers or the 3 numbers in between, somewhere in between, somewhat like me, neutral, very much like me. And we asked them, this Likert type instrument, about something called communication apprehension, shyness, and anxiety, social anxiety. Those are all separate things, by the way. They might sound similar, but communication apprehension, for example, can be trait, can be state. So we have to assess them differently. Anyway, the interesting thing that we found is that all of these people who spend their entire lives studying how people talk are very high in communication apprehension, social anxiety, and shyness. For the most part, they're all shy nerds. They don't want to talk to anybody, and yet they spend their lives studying how people talk.
Completely understandable, though.
But it is understandable. But you notice a very specific difference, and you can always tell because they travel in pods. Now, I would say that pod refers more specifically to the ones going to the feminist panels because they're usually also always really fat, you know. And they always have blue hair, and I can't say too much shit, but it's just a gaggle. It's a pod of whales going to their feminist panel, and the rest of us are going to go listen about, hey, show me some numbers, dude. You know? I'm not saying everyone's like that. As I said, the field is an umbrella term. So we get feminist scholars. Yes, feminist and women's studies is a major part of my field. That is absolutely true.
Now that sounds like coming from the political position that you've espoused on several of not only your vids, but of course on different streams. That sounds like a lot of banging your head against the wall.
Not when you relegate and isolate yourself to the kind of area that I'm at, which is, we only do quantitative empirical post-positivism. I don't have to deal with much of that shit. I really don't. I mean, I get it from students. You get it. You do get it. But it is not the kind of shit that you see on Twitter.
But they divide themselves between the qualitative and quantitative lines. So therefore you are separated by theory.
No, actually the blue-haired feminist people, they're not qualitative scholars either. They're actually what's called critical cultural scholars, if you want to use the word scholar. That means that they deny, even often, not all of them, many of them deny even the qualitative research as being oppressive because it still at some point uses counting. Not always. Not all qualitative research does. But inherently, most qualitative researchers are going to be trying to get at reality.
Okay.
Critical cultural scholars, these post-structuralist people, they don't believe that an objective reality exists. They believe all reality is subjective. As such, they probably reject qualitative research as much as they would quantitative, or they sometimes do. I don't want to speak for everyone in any case. We have to be clear here. But if I was going to do, I've done qualitative research, for example. I like to turn it into numbers. For example, I would want to see how many times a certain phrase or word is used in a response. You can count that. That's now, it becomes, it's like why these terms, qualitative, quantitative, can be spurious in and of themselves. But the critical cultural people, or the rhetoric, now I actually think rhetoricians are fascinating because rhetoric is actually part of our field as well.
Really?
Rhetoric and linguistics, yes. That's why I said it's a giant umbrella term. So it's all over the place. But I've been at these conventions and heard rhetoricians talk about their research and been like, holy shit, that's the most interesting stuff I've ever heard. One of the best ones I heard was a rhetorical breakdown of Spec Ops: The Line. And it was just fascinating to hear how people describe their experiences and stuff like that, I wouldn't hear from people in my side of the research. And it's why it is good. Again, I said it's important that we have interdisciplinary discussion. And a good thing about these conventions is that we do get to hear from the feminists. I might totally disagree with them, but I've been in panels where they've been members and presented their research, and I've heard it. I don't want to agree because you didn't provide me with anything I can latch on to, but all right, it's still good to hear it, I guess, on some level.
Okay, so now I would think that a sense of humor would definitely come in handy when you're dealing with people in the field, what is the best comm joke that you've ever heard?
Oh, shit. Oh, I know, and I have some too. Damn it.
Because I want to get a show of hands, because I will raise or lower my hand whether or not I actually understand the joke, because I got a feeling that it might just slap me in the forehead and go right up over.
See, we have jokes about it, but now like you put me on the spot like that, I can't. I have
Okay,
to
well,
like hang on.
let's take another shot real quick, and we'll give the chat room the time to pause with us as we think.
Well, I mean, let me ruminate on it, and I'll think about it, because I know that I've heard jokes about comm scholars so many times, and about our field. There's so many. Jesus Christ, there's so many. What's our good comm joke? I could tell you a funny story about pretty much anything, but involved in my field. But God, I mean, it's a basic thing that's just like, yeah, it's essentially, the joke is as I described. It's a bunch of freaking turbo nerds who couldn't tie their own shoelaces in front of a group of people, who decide to go study people in groups talking to each other.
True. Now, as far as it goes with your field of study, when you sit down with it, I'm sure, like for myself, I have a large passion for writing. I'm a writer. I'm a damn good writer. And there are certain things that when I write give me an incredible amount of joy. Now, it's still called work, but there's still that fire, that passion, that joy that makes me continue on. What part about your actual job inspires you? The thing where you sit down and you've got something in your hands and you're saying, "Oh, this is going to be great."
Oh, but there's so much. One of the most interesting things to me, and this will sound very weird, but first of all, I just love reading research in general. It's just something that interests me. But when I get to see a piece of research that is completely, when they prove, when they forward their null, in other words, they didn't find what they expected, because the way that we go into research is we spend sometimes weeks, if you're very familiar with it, but potentially months, looking into a subject and being like, I have every reason to believe this X will correlate to Y. And then if you don't find that, that's fascinating. And the problem is that when you have non-findings, right?
Okay.
Now, if you find the opposite result, that's a whole different thing. That's getting published tomorrow. Not tomorrow. It'll get published in 3 months after it goes through peer review. But if you find no correlation, what most commonly happens is that research gets called what we call file drawered, meaning that you didn't find anything, so it's not interesting, quote unquote, so it's not publishable,
or profitable to be funded.
Most of our research is not funded. Some of it is, though. People in my field, I know in particular in my area of game studies, and media and internet research, do get funding from like Google and such. But yeah, it just gets file drawered from the journals.
So, have you run into a theorem that you were unable to prove?
Well, this is something important. We can't prove anything in social science, and not just my field, but any social science field.
Gotcha.
Because we can never find a one-to-one correlation. We can never find a 100% variance accounted for when we talk about the nature of humanity. Humans are inherently volatile, so as such, we cannot prove anything. We can find correlations, we can find causal evidence. We can't prove anything. I said it in an early video of mine, I think in my social science, how do I social science videos, which is the first thing to do when you get into studying social science, is to eradicate the word prove from your vocabulary. We can't. We cannot prove anything beyond a measure of a doubt.
Gotcha. Well, that makes complete and utter sense too. Because, I hate to use the word snowflakes, but we are all different, and I mean, impact of in environment and genetics and social order will basically, you know, drop you into a crucible to figure out what you're going to become. I know as far as my siblings go, I'm completely different from mine,
Oh,
and
sure.
yeah, I think that would be rough.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not there are really not many um, genetic or biological determinists. We get called it sometimes when we look at genetic information and say, "Hey, heredity has an effect," but it's a percentage effect. It becomes actually one of the things that's most frustrating in my work on YouTube is trying to explain to people in common parlance and make it explicitly clear that just because we find a correlation, just because we find even a causation or causal link between things, does not mean that it um, has anything to do with any one individual, because people will get very upset and say like, oh, you found that twins are have this and this in common, or you find that, for example, if your parents are conservative, you're more likely to be conservative in the long run. Oh, so you're saying because my parents are Republicans I must be a Republican? No, of course I'm not saying that. That's an absurdity. But I think there's a maybe fundamental lack of understanding, and it's not their fault. It's in the education system's fault. I have been a long-term proponent of the idea that we should teach basic statistics. And I don't even mean like a real statistics class. I don't even want you to do t-tests, guys. I want you to just understand how statistics function. Because if you notice, Doc, as I'm sure you have, the
Uh-huh.
media is very fond of using statistics all the time to
Oh
say,
yeah.
oh, this many people did this and this many people say this. But the average person, I don't think understands how they arrived at those data, and they expect the media to explain it to them in an adequate way, and they don't. So we end up with a lot of misinformation, and it's not the fault of any one individual. Again, it's the fault of, I don't ever want to blame the education system because it sucks already, but we don't learn these things at a basic level, and it is ultimately a major detriment to society, I think. That we don't have to take statistics 101 in high school.
Now, where do you think the flaw lies within public education, or is it just a cultural shift?
I would say that public education is not hoping, but that, yeah, again, I mean, I don't have any problem with high school students taking calculus. I think that's a good thing. But instead of, or maybe combine into like the civics classes that I know people still have to take, put a basic understanding of statistics in there, because it's the reason, well, we've now know how flawed the public education system is. If you've looked at the kind of textbooks that are being used that call Trump and his followers. I saw this one the other day on Twitter. There was someone posted just a couple pages out of a textbook that their high school student was being taught out of. That said, yeah, that Trump was put into office by neo Nazis.
Oh my.
And, well, I mean, that's the problem with the civic stuff.
Well,
But
and I had a debate about a week back with somebody who was talking about the it wasn't the Jewish question, but it was how many people had actually died in the Holocaust.
yeah,
Now when I went through school, it literally was 4 million. In the textbook, I still have the textbook. It was 4 million that died. So I mean, we're not doing any favors to any of the kids growing up going through public education right now, because I think there's a lot of stilted vision, that there's maybe a little bit too much agenda pushing, whereas when I was in school it was like, here's this, here's this, read them, tell me what you think, what is your opinion. I
well,
don't think. Go ahead.
I was just given a note from my Quebecois friend who said that at least in Quebec they have a whole half a year dedicated to statistics. So go Quebec, I guess. But
Well, Quebec has to be useful for something, and you can tell him I said that.
Other than that, though, yeah, I think that it's shoot. Now I've lost. She's handed me this, and now I've lost my train of thought. Oh, recap what you were saying. I'm so sorry.
Oh no, what I was saying is, I think
Mm.
to be blunt, I think we're just making our kids dumber because we're not making them do the things like you are doing in your specified field, which is, I mean, cause and effect is definitely a great thing, but the journey to understanding how you get to that thought, to that theory, to that belief is basically the most important part of that journey.
I agree completely, and you know, to me, I guess because I also, as you may or may not know, was involved in a Holocaust denial thing. Is that my way of going into that kind of stuff is to always go into things being like, if I can't find a definitive number or piece of data, one, I will tell my audience that I can't. And as I'm rendering, oh, it just finished rendering. So, well, the first part, I had to split it into parts because I'm out of the state. I'm away from my regular computer, so I have to do it on a laptop.
You got to do it where you can and how you can.
Well, fam, it'll be up by tomorrow. I thought it would be out by today, but oof.
And what's the title of it?
I don't have a title yet. Actually, we could brainstorm on it. I could talk about it though. But my first and foremost, my thing is that there were several things that I could not locate the data for. They were cited in this video, but I looked up the citation and I couldn't find it. So I had to say, I couldn't find it. And there are times where I say, I don't know. There are times where I say, I literally don't know what is happening. And I think that the best way we can be is honest. But for some reason, our society has entered this point where everyone has to know everything all the time without question.
Well, you know what I call them? I call them Google academics. They're only as smart as fast as they can type into Google.
And I hate the skeptic label, but I would say rather question pretty much everything. You should always ask, and particularly if you find that something is being blocked, and you're being told don't ask questions about that, like Islam. Don't ask questions about the Quran. Don't no stop! How dare you?
Well, I think
you want to ask more questions.
I think there's been a systematic destruction of the Socratic method over the past 20 years.
Right.
And to me, that's the heart of everything. Now, I have to say I was a debate coach. So I did mostly Lincoln Douglas. And my whole thing was I could tear them down very quickly by just using the Socratic method. Well, okay, how did you come to this opinion? Why do you think this? And then that made them go into a reflection state. And I don't think we're doing that to the youth of America anymore.
There is, I believe, and I told you at the start of this that this is something I didn't want to talk about, but I might touch on it. But okay. There is a logical, horrible outcome of overuse of the Socratic method, which is when you ask nothing but questions and provide no answers in a debate.
I agree. I completely agree.
There are certain people on the internet who have never answered a single question that's ever been asked to them.
Yeah, I don't know any of those names.
And what ends up happening is that it looks, you look like you win when you only can pose questions and answer none.
And that's why Mundane Matt is a god.
Oh geez, yeah. They're Helios is right. They're sophists essentially, and sophistry is the ultimate sort of problem there of trying, or it's pedantry, I suppose you could call it too, or sophistry of getting bogged down into the minutia, while the macro level questions remain unanswered because you refuse to answer them. Now, you're correct. That's a good way of breaking down someone's argument, of asking, why do you believe this? Why? And that's good.
Well,
But
but I think it's more important that that if they're not complete and total ass clowns, that it's going to cause them to go into reflection themselves, because you
Mhm.
don't need to win your argument right then and there, as long as you have them walking away from you at least thinking about it, and not, did I get the W, did I get the L?
Right, that to me is foreign. Right. My way of looking at things, I'm very much inductive in my reasoning process of
Okay.
that I observe something, and this is the exact way I go about making every single one of my videos. Is I observed something. It could be another video I saw. It could be something that I read on the news or heard on the news. It could be something I physically witnessed, and if I start to see a trend of maybe more than one thing, I ask, what's going on here? And from that, I go to theory. I go to theory and existing research to try and explain what I observed. And from that, try to come to an answer. I often find research that totally contradicts and conflicts with what I expected. And that, again, is the most exciting part for me because, oh my God, I thought it would be the opposite. That's great. I love that. Now, if people think that I am biased because my videos generally tend to prove a point, it's because then I went and took everything that I had and put it into a plan, to make a video out of it. But honestly, guys, the thing that I find most interesting is when a piece of information flies in my face. The reason it very often does not is because, again, I've been studying it for years and I kind of know, I can anticipate what's going to happen based on my existing schema and based on my existing understanding of this kind of stuff. But yeah, sometimes it does. And sometimes it does in really interesting ways. That's the best part of research to me.
Well, and I mean, I'm not saying dumb it down for me, but yeah, dumb it down for me. What is one instance where that's happened to you?
Oh, just in a recent video I did, I was reading some research and I thought maybe I really thought that need for cognition, which is a trait-like desire that we have as humans and as individuals. So everybody rates differently on need for cognition. How much I like to think about things. It does not
Okay.
have any association with intelligence or anything else. Just how much you like to ruminate, essentially, about different things. I anticipated that that would be positively associated with more complex jokes when I was studying humor. And it turned out that need for cognition in every single study I read was either unrelated or yeah, they sometimes threw it in as like, well, let's see if cognition was related. And I should have known that. I think if I had been more cognizant and thinking a little bit more heavily about why beforehand, that humor is a peripheral route cue. In other words, I thought that people who were high in need for cognition might experience humor differently, but it had no effect.
You
I
mean
know
as of a lack or a different perspective as far as what humor is?
finding jokes more or less funny,
Okay.
and it had no effect in every piece of research I read on it, and I was like, wow.
That
That
is interesting.
it was unexpected to me, but again, once I started to think about why, I was like, oh wait, never mind. That's quite logical. That makes every bit of sense as to why need for cognition had nothing to do with it. I just thought it would have, and I find shit like that all the time. I find shit like that all the time in terms of I do a lot of research on the differences between liberals and conservatives, only because it tends to be what a lot of people who watch my stuff are interested in and what I'm interested in. Is there a difference on a psychological level? And sometimes there is, but oftentimes there's not.
And
And that's the cool
and
part.
how does your chat reflect that?
Hmm?
How does your chat reflect that?
Like the
I mean,
comments?
yeah, I mean, do you get a lot of people arguing against, a lot of people arguing for, or do you find it's an even field?
I find that my comment section and also people on my Discord and stuff are pretty much directly center. And that's interesting because now I hope that I have facilitated this because I have always been very honest And I believe that honesty is the most important thing in this dumb shit, because actually, as scientists, we're supposed to state our biases often when we go into any piece of research that has the potential to be highly influenced by bias, is to say, here are my biases. My biases are, I'm a right-wing, libertarian-esque person. I'm a Trump supporter and a Trump voter. And so there you go. That's what you need to know about me. But I found that the people who watch my stuff actually do range across. I get messages every day from people on Twitter, and I really appreciate it, guys, that say like, hey, I totally disagree with all of your politics. I hate your politics, but I think what you're doing is of net good. And that
I think it's nice to see centrists, because they literally look at both sides and point out any flaws that they feel exist in either argument.
Yeah, and I'm totally cool with that. I think that's great. I always try to make it clear that, yeah, again, I am biased. I definitely have a leaning.
Well,
but you know,
I've always said that
we all do. We all do.
I had somebody try to call me into the corner and say, well, since you voted for Trump, do you hate black people? And
oh, God.
I'm like, well, hold on for a second. Let me just explain to you that I am bigoted, but I am bigoted on a case-by-case basis. If you're an asshole, you're an asshole. And they said, well, you didn't answer the question. Do you hate blacks? And it's one of those things where you just have to shake your head and walk away.
It's odd because there's just, I think the left is really killing itself in a lot of ways. And I've talked about this many times. I just got a message on Twitter, 20-30 minutes ago that I checked it. And it said, it's been an hour or something. And it said, oh, hey, Nazi, do you still want to kill black people? And it's like, well, you know what? For being now the alt-right, not all of them. I'm actually pretty cool with many people on the quote alt-right, but there are a lot of people who really hate me because I dated a black guy for 2 years. So I'm like the weirdest Nazi ever, if I am one, but they don't give a shit about nuance. They don't give a shit about that kind of stuff. And it actually is what's going to kill the left in the United States, as far as I can tell, because they're incapable of abandoning their self-righteousness.
Yep.
And I've talked about this. I think that my channel is probably more than anything, a crash course on how to get the left to fix itself. But there's no way they're ever going to listen, because they don't watch my shit. So there's no way they're ever going to listen to my crap of being like, here's how you don't immolate yourselves. But of course, they're really dedicated to that. So good job.
So now you definitely have some dedicated acolytes at this point. You've gained popularity, and I think you've done it in, I would say, the most productive way, which is just, hey, this is what I think about it. I'm leaving it out here. Here's my citations. This is why I think this way. And there's a lot of people out there who are running these type of commentary channels who are literally saying, this is how I feel, and I don't need to back it up. Now, I've heard that both on the left and both on and with the right as well. As far as it goes to get you to transition from being IRL academic to YouTube academic, and we just talked about dumbing it down for me. Do you find that there's times where you do have to throttle yourself back in order to provide what you think would be a better explanation to the regular layman like myself who are out there listening to you?
I think maybe I should more. I very, very much do listen to the criticism and critique that I get. And I hear completely conflicting things. Some people really respect and like the fact that I talk at the level that I do. So for example, in the video I'm about to release, I define the words denotation and connotation, which is funny because one of them means definition. So I had to define those terms because it's just important for what is happening next in the video. And I make a note to say, I'm not trying to insult your intelligence by defining these common terms, but there might be people listening who don't know them. And every time I make a video, and it's why they all end up being 50 minutes long, is I know that not everybody has the time or ability to listen to every single video that I make. So I have to redefine things like I also have to redefine the elaboration likelihood model in this video very quickly. I do it in about 2 sentences. And maybe like 1.5. It's why my videos keep getting progressively longer, because it's essentially I come at this from the same way that I would come at teaching a class. But the difference is when you teach a class, as I have, it's a building aspect. It is progressive, right?
Understandable.
YouTube does not work that way, because if it's a course, yeah, you might not show up for a day or two of the lecture, but then it's on you for fucking up because you paid to be here. If you didn't watch one of my videos where I talked about a certain theory or something, well, that's not your fault. I have to therefore, make everything clear. In terms of, I don't know how else to describe it than that, of like, it's not me trying to dumb things down. It's I've been teaching classes and giving lectures. If you include all the lectures I've given, about 10 years now. I've been at the university level 3, 4. Shit, 4. Oh
Well,
God.
and honestly, I kind of liken what you're doing. When I was 11 or 12 years old, I started reading H.P. Lovecraft, and Lovecraft is verbose.
Yeah.
I mean, he loves that polysyllabic word.
Yeah.
And I literally had to sit a dictionary thesaurus right next to me while he read. And I think, honestly, what you're doing is a positive thing. If they have to, for lack of a better phrase, think up, then that's good, because they're making the effort to better themselves, or to at least be able to understand what opinions they're holding.
I talked about this extensively in the video again I'm about to upload. I always get preoccupied with the things I'm working on because they absorb my mind space, if you want to say. But I'm talking a lot about language and linguistics. And part of that is, yeah, that language does in part alter our perception of reality. How we perceive things is defined by how we use language on some way. It's not as extreme as the original Sapir-Whorf hypothesis promulgates, but the thing about, for example, using different definitions or a more complex terminology, or using a wider lexicon, yeah, that potentially can be good to people because it does get them to think about things more, right?
Well, and you don't lob it in like a grenade saying, here it is, deal with it. You go into exposition. That's something that's something that a lot of these deep theorists just don't bother to do. I stopped watching Thunderfoot just because, well, I mean, he turned out to be an ass later on, but just because he would go into these things with kind of this smarmy grin about, yeah, I'm smarter than you, and let me prove it by not explaining what I'm talking about. Whereas I love the laid back style of Dr. Lehman, because
Yeah.
he's smarter than you, but still he takes the time to throttle it down and say, this is what I'm talking about.
Well, that's why he's Dr. Layman. That's the exact reason behind his name, is that I feel like I maybe go too, I maybe talk too high a little bit in terms of I explain shit very quickly, and I know that I do this, but I provide all my citations. I'm meticulous about providing my citations, and I try to always show if there's a graph or if there's any kind of thing that I can show to illustrate it to you visually. I always include that.
Okay, well, I tell you what, let's get some ones in the chat for people who are not frustrated by Aiden's videos. I would be incredibly interested in seeing, because honestly, I would put a 1 in. I'm not frustrated by them at all. There are some theories that I have to slow down and maybe re-listen to. But that's just because of the brain damage that I
Oh
have.
no, it's not you. It's my and I was talking to people about this recently, is that I I talk very quickly, and I have a minor speech thing. It's called cluttering, where you smash words together, and you can sometimes hear it in my videos, even after multiple recordings, where words end up sounding kind of slurred because I was talking so fast. And in fact, one of the things I do is all of my videos are slowed down by about 5 to 10% off of the base recording.
Wait a minute. Do you physically slow it down in post production?
I slow down in post. Yeah.
Okay. And just to pass this along, Aydin, if you're not watching the chat, it's all ones.
Yeah, I'm looking at you. Thank you,
And
guys.
and while we're getting to the top of the hour here, let me stop and do this because damn it, I haven't shilled for you yet. Of course, in the description, you will see links to Aydin's Twitter, her YouTube, her Streamlabs, and semi-importantly, the Patreon. Now, don't you have a merch store too?
I do have shirts, and the thing is, actually, my new design is done. I should actually post it on my Twitter, but I was getting ready to leave. There's a doggo downstairs. Anyway, I was getting ready to leave the other day, and I was literally about to press OK on the merch for the new thing to go up if you don't like the current shirt. I have a new one. I'll post it on Twitter. Actually, I'll do it now in the next couple minutes, guys.
Yeah. I tell you what, if you want to do that real quick, let me just go on a rant
Sure.
for a second. Now, this is our 8th episode, and everybody that we've brought on has had a definitive opinion. There's really no one who's been wishy-washy about what they think,
It's
what
the
they
trap
believe.
question.
No.
Oh.
No.
Just expecting.
Traps might be gay. Once again, it's individual bigotry. You have to figure it out yourself. But the most important thing that you can do for anybody who is on YouTube, who is providing content that you like, that you come back to, that you look forward to hearing, is by supporting them. Now, I know there are people out there who, don't have enough ducats in the wallet to make the lighting bill, but if you can't support through Patreon, if you can't support through Streamlabs, then please, by all means, make sure you have your voice known through the YouTube channel, through Twitter, even those people who are still hanging on over in Twitch. Make sure that you let them know that what they're doing is appreciated, because that type of feedback is incredibly invaluable. You don't know how much those content creators need, enjoy, and respect when somebody takes the time to either drop them some cash or at least a line to say, hey, listen, I like what you're doing. Or at the opposite end of the spectrum, being able to drop in your question to be able to challenge them on what they think and what they believe. Because if they're able to adequately explain that to you, then they sure as hell have a farther path to walk, because at least they're getting a little bit better definition on what they think. And I hope that makes sense to everybody, because I have enough trouble talking up to people because everybody's always, talking down to me, but I'm sad that way. Hey, anyway, I want to make sure everybody, please do have your questions ready, since we're past the top of the hour. We want you to be able to talk with Aydin. So please do have some questions queued up. And I hope we've provided some answers to questions that are not generally asked, because I will say right up front, I'm a fan of Aydin. I love the work that she does. I haven't been blocked yet on Twitter for any of the memes that I've made about her. So I think I'm kind of on the right track.
I don't block anyone for like the kind of shit that I block people for on Twitter is being like, I want to kill you. Like that's the kind of shit that it's like, I'm gonna find you and do terrible things to you. Like that's the kind of shit I block people for on Twitter. Outside of that, I don't do that. You're a Nazi, Holocaust denier. You hate black people and whatever. Yeah.
Well, Jeff Holiday blocked me because I said, "Wow, that's a real nice haircut. You going for a job interview?"
Oh, he blocked me too, and I have no idea why.
Well, Nick blocked me, but that's we got history, he and I. But yeah, now as far as it goes, I did want to ask this about the Twitter environment, about this mass flagging and mass suspension thing. In your position, what do you think Com would say about why this is trending, why this is happening?
Um, I don't know. I guess that it would just be that there are certain people who realize that it's actually quite easy to fuck with this shit in ways that they did not maybe realize before. That, well, I think things have changed. For example, the existence of live chat is much different from how things used to be on YouTube before everyone streamed everything, right?
Yeah.
Before, now we can just get on there, and it happens to me all the time. People just post my real name, they post my address and my information on streams. They just post it, just spam it through the chat, and it's a totally new way of being able to do that rather than a YouTube comment, right?
It sure is.
So I think that they realize they have the ability to control people and manipulate people in this way. And by the way, you guys do not have my real address. I've seen the one you keep posting. Not mine. Haha. Do not swat anybody either way. Don't fucking swat the innocent person whose address that is, for fuck's sake. Oh God. But you know,
And you know, honestly, I think, I mean, I hate to try to dovetail this back into the social retardation comment that I had made at the beginning, but I'm really thinking that it's just one of those things where they go anon and they think that they can get away with it, and it grants them some type of ephemeral power that they don't have in their real life. So, I mean, I think 90% of the people out there, if they did this IRL, would not do it IRL because they
oh, of course
know they would get their ass beat.
yeah, no, of course they would not do that. This is called the so there's two sides to de-individuation, right? It's toxic and benign disinhibition.
Okay.
So let's start with the toxic, because it's the most interesting one, right? Which is that the toxic stuff is you lack any concerns for repercussion of your actions online when you are anonymous or disinhibited or de-individuated. As such, you can act like a total and complete fucking raging asshole. In contrast, we have benign
Sure.
disinhibition, which is the stuff I was talking about at the beginning, which are the very positive effects of sharing more information, being more outgoing kind of stuff. And, you know, again, as with most things in life, I suppose it goes both ways. Just, there are going to be people who will be so affected by this that, yes, they're going to do terrible things. And it's what's called the cockpit effect, actually, in that the term arises from cockpit pilots. You know, they go down, they drop bombs and be like, yeah, fuck the nips, fuck these filthy Japs. And then they see videos of Hiroshima and Nagasaki and
Mm-hmm.
were brought to tears by some of them were, not all of them. Some of them were like, fuck yeah, fuck these stupid Japs, because some of them were blown away from the blowing away that they did, right? And that
Sure.
to actually see it, to see the visceral human effect. And that's the cockpit effect of, like, when you don't see someone's face, you don't see that person as a person. They're dehumanized, they're de-individuated, they're not an individual by the very basis of the term.
They have no face.
Yeah, they are not an individual by the very most, you know, simplistic basis of what that term means. Zimbardo 1969. As a result, yeah, there are going to be people who will do absolutely horrific things on the internet, and we can't not anticipate that. It's going to happen. And I can't even totally blame them for doing it, because according to their mindset, you know, that they're probably in, it's not completely illogical. I do think that anyone who doxes is a piece of shit.
Yeah.
And anyone who attempts to ruin other people's real life lives is a piece of shit. But I don't blame them for trolling. Trolling's normal.
Well, some people just want to see the world burn.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay, are you ready for some chat questions?
Sure thing.
Gravedigger has the first one, which is, who speaks faster, Shapiro or Aydin?
I don't know.
I gotta go with Ben.
He talks pretty quickly. I intentionally slow myself down.
Well, and literally, he'll just trample on a subject. He won't really back up that much. You never hear the beep beep beep.
Yeah, I like Shapiro on a lot of levels, but yeah, I'm not sure about that.
Yeah,
who talks faster? I'm sure we could have a competition.
Well, now that would be fun if we got both you and Ben out to be auctioneers.
Hey, the CW in this corner is the CW in that corner. How much are we here for this absolute feminist talking some mad shit? I don't know fucking how to do that.
Okay, this question comes from Brave Rabbit. If there was a cure for autism, would you take it?
I wish there was a cure for it, but I don't know if I personally would. Only because I think that autism, although it's been frustrating to me in a lot of ways, I don't even know if that's exactly what it is. It's just what they told me, as an adult, which is a different kind of diagnosis than being diagnosed as a kid. But what they told me, I think that maybe it's positively affected my life in some ways, and very negatively in others. I think it allows me to have the kind of focus and intensity that is useful, but it also makes me socially retarded. So, would I take a cure for autism? For autism, it's a question. I have other things that I would very happily take a cure for, but the autism one, I don't know.
I would say
think that
definitely don't.
Well, I think that a lot of people throughout history have probably been what we now call autistic, who have benefited from the weirdness in their heads.
Well, yeah, they speculate that Da Vinci was an autist, and he
Yeah.
was probably one of the greatest thinkers ever.
Yeah, I don't know. I just I don't really know enough about it. I think that it might have helped, maybe in some way, but who knows?
Okay, well, Two Pump Meme Dump. And by the way, Two Pump Meme Dump, send me a DM or at least a link, because I'm always up for a good meme. Aydin, do you believe Pearl Harbor was a false flag by the British?
I've heard that sort of theory before, but I don't personally believe it, but I haven't looked into it enough to have any kind of idea. I mean, I used to think that 9/11 was unquestionable, and then I started to look into Tower 7. I know that's going to sound immediately conspiratorial, but that's kind of weird. Some of the shit that happened.
No, continue, please.
Well, Tower 7 was too far away to have been affected from the actual impact, and yet was burned to the ground. The big questions about 9/11 were Tower 7. I would say that the biggest issue is that, and the fact that the entire fucking thing burned down to ash and down into below the infrastructure. Both of the towers, so at least one of them did. There's just weird shit about that, and I don't know enough about it, and I'm not going to spend my life researching it. So all I can say is, I don't know. Maybe. I don't really trust. What did I say, I think, earlier? Question everything.
Yep.
I haven't looked into Pearl Harbor enough to be able to make a definitive statement, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's not necessarily exactly as it's been touted by the media, because I don't believe anything the media touts. I don't know. That's just me.
I guess I have to insert a dad joke here. Did you know that I had a friend who had a black mother and an Asian father, and every December 4th, he would bomb Pearl Bailey. Okay, on to the next question. I don't get this one. I hope to God you do. Merc asks, Beppis, Conky, or Mr. Beeper?
I don't know, Merc. He's downstairs.
He's
so
not here. Merc is not there.
Is he not here?
No, he went to get Edge.
I thought he was still here. Oh, I thought they were back. Okay, so
No,
he's
they
not
were
here.
Not. They're like about 18 minutes away.
All right, so Merc is doing that on his phone. Beppis every day.
Beppis.
Out of those things that you said, but in reality, I love Dr. Pepper.
Mr. Pepper.
Okay, so I don't understand that one at all, and I don't think I
It's
ever
a
will.
Mimi.
But shame on you, Mark. I'm taking your wrench away. Jason Phillips asks, is neurodiversity a real thing or just a PC push?
I think this goes back to the autism question. Neurodiversity is unquestionably a thing, but the whole thing that like, oh, hey, I have bipolar, I shouldn't take medication. No. Your brain is chemically imbalanced. You should take medication to try and help it. That's my opinion. Not everyone agrees with me on that, but
is it just that neurodiversity exists, but we don't know the levels of how it operates?
Neurodiversity, without question, exists, but it's this framing of the term diversity as because diversity makes it sound like it's a good thing, right? Because of how we have used this term in the common lexicon, right?
Well, socially, currently, yeah.
In terms of genetics,
that's not true, though. People who have depression or schizophrenia or bipolar, any number of mental disorders that we can actually see show up in fMRI data that show that their brains operate differently, that when we introduce them to chemical stimuli, we can find that it functions in a disparate way. Yes, it means neurodiversity inherently does exist, but is it a good thing? No. I don't think necessarily Now, I had an interesting conversation with Jean-François Gaipin about this, and he said that he could find an explanation for every single neurological disorder that
wait a minute, are you talking about JF?
Yeah,
you mean the GLP
in the public space? He said he could come up, he had an explanation for pretty much every neurological disorder from an evolutionary standpoint. So he might be correct that there are evolutionary reasons for which women are more prone to histrionic personality disorder, for example. Of women are more prone to that because it allows them to gain more male attention. Yeah, so this neurodiversity idea, potentially, yes, there are values to it, but are they good for society as a whole? Probably not.
Okay. Well, that does make sense. And if I may, apparently I had skipped a question from, I believe it's Herios. Aydin Paladin, is it possible to establish a causal link without explaining the mechanisms, i.e. physiological, behind the process?
What, which process? Okay, in general, okay. Basically what we need for causal links, or the most basic thing that we need are temporal establishment. But we also need to be able to control for confounding variables. So the most basic structure of a experiment, right, as you know here, yes, I'm sure, is that we have state one, introduction of the stimulus, and then the state two. That's the most basic thing. And but how else, causaling without explaining the mechanisms? No, oftentimes, particularly in social science research, we don't understand the mechanism that the stimulus was. We're just introducing a stimulus. We don't know what it necessarily means or does, but we can just examine the differences between the two and say, well, because I introduced a new thing, it's causal. Now, is that an error? Very highly potentially, because when we look at data like this, particularly when they're more longitudinal in aspect, there are all kinds of other external and confounding variables that can affect the data. If we're doing it in a laboratory environment, Now, this also really limits external validity in that now it's become a lab experiment. What does this mean in terms of the long run? But this is a complex question that I believe I've tried to explicate right there.
I think you leaned into it appropriately.
It's a very simple question that actually has a question that is an answer that is in of itself a question in a lot of ways.
Well, it's just like the what was the one philosophy class in a college? I can't remember which one it was. The philosophy professor came in for the final exam, went up to the chalkboard and wrote "why," set the chalk down, walked away. The people who actually got the A on the final exam were the ones who answered because.
Yeah. Holy shit. Someone's got an answer got a question that I actually was just talking about earlier today, and I'm going to pull up research on.
Are we talking about?
It's later on.
Okay.
I said pull up my book.
Do you want to pull it now, or do you want?
Oh, I already got. No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay.
Read I'm pulling up.
If Steven Crowder and God asks, if Steven Crowder and Ben Shapiro are both drowning, and you only have one life preserver, where on the boat do you go to eat?
Wait, what? Okay, Steven Crowder and Ben Shapiro are both drowning. Let me look up and see this. What?
And you only have one life preserver, where on the boat do you go to eat?
I love Reuben sandwiches, so I'm hanging out with Ben. I love Jew food. That's gonna be a nail in my coffin of being a Jew.
Oh, I love it when you make a nice mutton, lettuce, and tomato sandwich.
It's
and the mutton is
delicious.
nice and lean.
It's fucking delicious, dude.
Oy.
I love Jew food. It's so good. A Jewish deli, that's the best place to get like good meat. Just saying.
Oh, corned beef can't beat it.
Mm-hmm.
Hirios asks, as a psychologist, what's your position in philosophy of mind? Are you a materialist?
You know what? I don't have a very strong opinion on it. I think I am probably a materialist ultimately, but I'm not like a great person when it comes to philosophy to ask me questions about stuff like that. I mostly am a little bit autistic, in that I mostly like to think to things that I can quantify, and when I can't quantify something, I start to get a little bit queasy on it. So,
but that's okay. It, like I would guess you're not much of a bocce ball fan. So if a bocce ball, you do.
I haven't played bocce since I was a kid, but it's very fun.
Yeah, but I mean, if somebody's going to ask you a question about professional bocce players, you'd probably go, "Yeah, let's just go ahead and skip that one."
No. Hirios usually has good questions for me. It's just that I don't always have a strong answer. 1 second.
And while she's taking that second, ladies and gentlemen who are in the chat, I would like to thank you for coming out. Now, it's not ending yet because we still have a few questions to go, but please lift your adult intoxicant into the air and let's have a drink for Aydin Paladin for coming on Rolling Without Sisyphus. And salud.
Okay. Yeah, salud. All right, I'm back.
Okay. All right. Grave Digger asks, who is John Galt?
Isn't John... Wait a minute. I know that name. Why is my brain not working on it? Oh, that's from Atlas Shrugged.
Yeah.
Shit, like my... God, again, I get into certain like mindsets. So are you asking if I'm an Ayn Rand fan? I actually wrote an essay when I was in high school. There are Ayn Rand scholarships. I wrote essays on every one of her major novels to get in. I did not get accepted into any of them, but oh well. I guess I wasn't Randian enough.
So you like Ayn Rand?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Anne. I don't know how you pronounce things. This is another problem with me. I'm very well read, but I don't listen to things. In terms of I don't hear things spoken very often, so I often mispronounce things. Like I went around for years saying Charles Murray and not realizing that it was Murray. Wow. Just because in my head, that's how I thought it was pronounced. Just
I
like,
can't.
that's Murray.
I can't tell you how many people have pronounced Nitschke. So
Oh
that
yeah, I know.
let me ask you this, because I want to drop in a question or two here.
Mhm.
When it's not related to your academia, who do you read for pleasure?
I mostly read fiction. I love Sanderson. I just did a stream about The Witcher, so that's Andrzej Sapkowski, um, and also his other works. I didn't even talk about his other stuff that I've read, but I mostly read extremely complex fantasy stuff. Yeah,
So who's your guilty pleasure?
guilty pleasure. I actually talked about it, but I think that the Name of the Wind series might be. That's what's the whole series called, though. I always forget. Patrick Rothfuss. Yeah, Name of the Wind series is. I Some people really hate it. I would consider it not even really a guilty pleasure, but some people despise that series. So, all right.
I guess I'll have to look that one up.
Mm.
Um,
It's kind of like Harry Potter for adults.
I hated Harry Potter. I thought it was probably some of the shittiest writing next to who's the idiot who wrote Twilight?
Oh, no. In terms of
Stephanie Meyer.
it has some elements of going to a magic school, pretty much, but it's very, very different in a lot of ways. It's just I've heard it described that way.
Well, I don't even know
You want more
Shinra.
murder and rape and stuff than the Name of the Wind's probably
I
better.
don't know if I'm going to ask this question from Shinra Kuroki or Shinra Kuroki.
No, he's cool. He's cool.
Okay. Says Aydin Paladin about being branded a Holocaust denier. Could it be said that you did not see that coming?
Oh, I did not actually, because I'm not a Holocaust denier, and it was
Shinra,
just
you're losing your wrench.
no, don't take it.
That's a dad pun.
It's no, don't punish the dad puns. Uh, did I see it coming though? To answer the question, the joke seriously, yeah, on some level, but because of course they do this to everybody. Kevin Logan and Michael Rowlands and the rest of the Brain Trust, they basically look for people to persecute and over nothing. And one of the things that's I find particularly funny is that when I said to him and to other people, well, I do know people who don't think the Holocaust happened. Would you like me? Because they'll talk. I guarantee you they'll talk to you. They'll debate you. But why are you debating me when our ultimate conclusion is both that yes, the Holocaust happened? Now they call me a Holocaust revisionist, and when I said, "Hey, I'll introduce you to an actual Holocaust denier," they said, "Oh, look, there it is. There is proof. There is proof. She denies the Holocaust. She knows someone who does." I'm like,
well, it dovetails back into exactly what you were saying. People will pick at the minutia until they find what they want to help be able to validate themselves.
pretty much. Well, I think that honestly, people like Kevin Logan and Michael Rowlands and Christy Winters, they're for whatever reason not willing to engage in the people that they actually find reprehensible and oppositional to their politics. Now, the problem there, though, with what Kevin Logan did is that he is a person and he is mostly friends with people who espouse the idea or the concept of punch a Nazi. And then he outright called me a Nazi. As far as I'm concerned, that is an active call to violence. That is a call to hurt or potentially kill someone. And that is outside of the fact that there's no way I can ever probably work actively in academia again over this. Maybe I can. We'll see. We'll see if it has any lasting effect.
I have faith.
You actively called for me to be punched, if not killed, because you called me a Nazi. So that's some fucked up shit.
Well, I'll be honest with you. Personally, I thought that was because we had Kevin Logan on, and I thought that was one of our worst shows. just because of the fact that we're talking to a guy, and if we're not talking to him about whatever he's sticking his big spoon in and stirring shit, is just really not very interesting. There's not much to him once you get past whatever he's, raging against.
I think he's very focused. I also know that apparently, because I don't follow him, but I've been sent screenshots of him getting very upset on Twitter in the aftermath of him calling me a Nazi. And it was because people were like, what the fuck? Why did you do this? This person is clearly not a Holocaust denier. And him getting very angry and upset because he was being called out on it. And it's like, look, my lad, you can't sit around and proselytize all day and spread misinformation about people and then not expect to get hit.
Oh, yeah.
Talk shit, get hit. That's all I can say to the likes of them.
Well, and me being like one of the older people running around in these circles, I got booted out of one of the live streams just because I got sick and tired of them debating about it. And I'm just like, shut up. Whether it's 4 million, whether it's 5 million, whether it's 6 million, it happened. It was a tragedy. You guys need to agree on that. Just nitpicking, going through the minutia, it doesn't matter.
Exactly. And we agreed on that, and it didn't. What ended up being the case is that it didn't matter what I said. They just decided I was a Nazi. I said I right before this started, I got some message on Twitter saying, "Hey, Nazi, do you still hate black people?" Okay.
That was a very frustrating stream. That was a wall banger. Now here's an interesting one from Altoona Your Piano. Aydin, have you ever done any studies on how music can color our perceptions on what we're seeing? And
I hope you can hear those knuckle cracks.
Yeah, and further, if our associations with music styles are based on culture or if they're more hardwired.
This is actually my new area of intense fascination.
Okay.
Yes, music can absolutely affect us in so many ways. For
then
example,
speak your speech.
I'm going to do something right now. I'm going to say something. I'm going to sing a little tune and you can finish it. Like a good neighbor.
State Farm is there.
There you go. That's the effect of music on persuasion. Because what it does is it creates what's called a mnemonic device. A mnemonic device is, so for example, oh my God, see, anytime someone asks me about something that I'm like hype about, I get this way. Oh, thank you. Oh, thanks for the Ayn Rand book. Anytime something really makes me hype, I get super excited about it. So in this particular instance, mnemonic devices are used by a lot of people for a lot of different reasons. We can use them to help us study. We find them used for a lot in popular fiction is card counting. People will walk through like cards in their heads and stuff, but mnemonic devices are essentially memory helping or assisting tools.
Sure.
So music serves essentially as a mnemonic device. We can also do all kinds of other crazy shit with music, such that we know it affects our mood. More upbeat music, more upbeat feelings that we experience. More low tempo music, more low tempo feelings. We feel more depressed. We can experience this in all kinds of ways. We know it through social exchange theory, in that when we hear people clap, we're more likely to clap as well. It's why they have laugh tracks on comedy shows. Social reciprocity theory.
Okay.
There's so much about music that we don't that absolutely affects you in perception. What was the second half of the question? I just got super excited because I've been actually conducting research on this right now, looking into how it persuades.
The second part of the question is, if our associations with music styles are based on culture or if they're more hardwired.
I don't know about that. That part of it, I would have to be something I would look into. Let me see. Hang on. I don't have anything on it here. So
Aydin, go to your feels.
I don't have anything on it here, but my guess would be that it is partially with pretty much anything in social psychology. We do see some differences across cultures, particularly not so much very related cultures like the US and the UK. You're not going to see a difference, but the US and the UK versus Japan, maybe. However, we do still have the same upticks, the up tempo versus down tempo natures of music. So I would say that I think we see across most cultures. There will always be cultures that fall outside of this. So there will be aberration. But no, I think that it would be an interesting thing to look into, and I'd have to see. One of the things that we spend a lot of time doing in current social science research is just multi-culti research of being like, how does this culture compare to another? Because for the most part, oh, hey, you asked me like an hour and a half ago about a joke about communication studies, and here it is.
I was going to get back to it.
We know more about the college freshman than any other animal on Earth. There's our joke. We don't know much about anything else. We know a lot about the college freshman, but
I got that one.
We don't know a lot about people all over the world. So, it would be interesting to do a cross-cultural. I'll have to see if there is any. I don't have any off the top of my head, though. No.
Now we have Brave Rabbit coming back. Does thinking that women should be allowed to vote and graduate college enough to make you a feminist?
No, I don't think women should be allowed to vote. So, but I don't know. I think that women should be allowed to go to college, but I don't think they should be allowed to vote unless they've contributed significantly to the society in which they exist.
Well, then it sounds like Sinatra just might be a good match for you.
Sinatra and I are well matched, I think.
Yeah, I almost brought him in to get his comments on guns, but this is your show. Let's see here. Bigus Dictus wants to know, wait, is it matzah?
I like matzah.
Really?
I like matzah soup. It's
Oh, okay. Now matzah soup is something different. If you just have matzah, it just really tastes like a damn stale cracker, like you're going to communion.
Yeah, just plain matzah is crap, but matzo ball soup is yummy.
Yeah, I'll agree. Matter of fact, there's very few Jewish dishes that I hate. And I think it's just because they're made with love.
I don't even think gefilte fish is that bad.
Whitefish is. Oh my God.
Well, it's the canned stuff, yeah, it can be pretty gross.
Well, I used to work in
I'm gonna really solidify the fact that everyone thinks, or the idea that everyone thinks I'm a Jew. Great.
No, well, I hate to say it, but you actually kind of look like my first ex-wife.
Oh, was she Jewish?
She did have a little bit in her.
I don't actually know the German side of my mom's family. I don't know. I know they were Lutherans, but I don't know if they were at some point one of the tribe. I have no clue.
Well, she was a Cleveland Browns fan too, so apparently that's why she married me. Well, let's see here. Okay, that's not the one. Oh, Altuna's back again. Altuna, your piano wants to know. I hope it's a he. I'm not a gender neutral kind of person. I won't say it. Aydin, I'd love to do a live stream with you to chat about this, because this is quite fascinating for me as a musician who employs psychology with his music. Oh, it's a him. Would it be a possibility in the future?
Sure.
Still on my damn show, Altuna?
You're more than welcome to shill. Please reach out to me on Twitter. I will. I do have open DMs, but I get like 10,000 messages a day. I will try to get through to it. If I do not respond to you publicly, bitch at me on Twitter, and I'll find it. I am still conducting research on this, it's been something that just kind of became an interest of mine. Maybe about a month ago when I started casually reading research on it. I just happen to have a book here on specifically music and persuasion. So with a chapter on that. So yeah, it would be something that I'm looking at. It's actually one of those topics where I really want to talk about it, but I don't have anything to hang it on. I don't have a current topic to normally the way that I do my videos is that I have a thing I want to talk about, and then I find a thing that exists that is currently relevant, and then I make a video about the thing I actually want to talk about, a theory or research or something, and I just hang it off of the current event. I don't have anything music related, although Kanye West and This Is America might be a good thing to hang it off of.
Oh my. Yeah, that's a meme that pretty much died coming out of the gate.
Well, what do I have here on hip hop?
Well, I tell you what, it's time for me to ask one of those questions that have nothing to do with anything but your life. What would you say would be your funny but most embarrassing moment?
Oh, god damn.
I'm asking the questions that apparently they don't normally ask. So
Funny
I'm not
but
going to
most
apologize because honestly, the 3 dozen people who are here watching definitely want to do a getting to know you.
I'm really trying to think of what's most embarrassing.
I'm so embarrassed.
Oh, jeez. I gotta, because there's so many embarrassing moments. Actually, yeah, you know what? Brave Rabbit said it in the fucking chat, which is when I cried in front of Kraut. That has to be it. That has to be of my entire life, and I'm a very embarrassing person. I've done a lot of embarrassing things, but me crying because of I always have to explain it. I knew that they had my docs. This is before I knew that my docs were out there, but they hadn't been spread around. No one gave enough shits about me. But I knew that Kraut's people or whatever, and by the way, they will take that out of context, and just say that right there I said Kraut did it. Someone involved with Kraut had my fucking docs. It was on their server. I saw evidence of it. And I was flipping my shit. I was invited on Andy Worski's stream. After, by the way, the most recent time I had talked to Sinatra before other things happened. And yeah, basically I was flipping out. I knew I was gonna probably lose my job, which I ended up resigning from and saying I'm done. I'm no longer going to be working at the university. I'm over this.
That's a damn shame. And that's another reason why I should butt in and say, listen, there are links in the description, not only for her Twitter, not only for her YouTube, but for Streamlabs and Patreon. Make sure and hit her up there. If you like the content, if you want to keep hearing the content, you got to do something about it.
I absolutely despise shilling, and I never shill myself. But
No, I'll do it.
If you guys feel so inclined, that's fine.
Hey, I don't have a Patreon. I don't have a Streamlabs that's active. I play around to check out and see how you do stuff on websites, but yeah, I'm doing this more for fun, and everybody that we can bring on, especially, I'd say, what is the percentage if you like 7 out of the 8 people that you've interviewed? Is that 80%? No. I don't know, but anyway,
the basic end to that though is that that was the most embarrassing. Was I thought Kraut and I were kind of cool because he was somebody who I looked up to when I made my channel, and you know it was very it was a great big wake up call of being like, Aydin, you fucking stupid retard, you cannot trust or idolize anybody in this. And it was something that I have to say to everybody in the chat too, and I really want to make this clear. Sometimes it seems like people who are in the YouTube thing that we're inaccessible, and I know that we kind of are because we probably can't answer all of your questions or things on Twitter, and that's only because of demand. But we're just fucking stupid, retarded people. We are. It was a hard lesson I had to learn about Kraut, who was somebody who I sort of, whose work I really respected. And it wasn't just with Kraut, it was with everybody I've ever been that way with. I mean, the first time I talked to Naked Ape, I was like, because I really respected and liked his stuff. And now I talked to him the other day and I was like, hey, faggot, what's going on? You know, I mean, that's the, Layman was a similar way. It was a lot of people like that. Don't, just
yeah.
don't worship these people. They're I know it's hard to because of how parasocial relationships work, but we're just weirdo faggots on the internet, you know?
So yeah, when's the big tag team Layman Paladin collab going to happen?
We did it was actually one of my, it might have been my second collaboration video. It's on his channel.
No, we're looking for more.
Layman and I stream fairly frequently. We streamed maybe a month ago on the concept of filter bubbles.
I'm an old guy, so time has no meaning to me.
No, Layman and I are chill, and we, you know, when we get the opportunity to work together, we do. Layman and I, and as well as I think the only other person whose content I think really is similar to mine is probably Tealdir, and
I haven't seen a video from him in a while though.
he does his research streams, and those are pretty cool.
Okay, because I'll be honest with you, there are very few streams that I actually listen to. I've kind of been turned off, especially ever since the IBS thing hit and people just want to fight. I'm like, I just don't want to hear it. I mean, I want to hear people entertain me, and you know, I live literally in a ghetto. If I want to hear people fight, I can just step outside on my front porch and see people literally fight. And when you've seen hookers in a hair pulling match, it doesn't it pales compared to what they do with IBS.
Yeah, the IBS stuff, I don't know how to respond to it really. I think that this is probably my problem with everything involving this internet bullshit, which is that I like everyone until you fuck with me. Until you insult me or try to hurt me in some way, my general opinion towards you is positive. And I think that's not a good way to be, but probably in the long run. But that's how I am, and I can't help it. I've tried to fix it. I'm a little bit more black-pilled than I used to be.
Well, and a lot of people are just, you know, basically trying to push it in to pull ratings. And really, it's just like there's a certain YouTuber out there that is deeply involved into blood sports, and I enjoyed his streams when it was just, you know, 100, 200 people sitting around just shooting the shit about nothing in particular. But, you know, now they expect him to rise up and to start fights when his most entertaining stuff was when he wasn't having fights, when he was just sitting back debating, you know, if you know, who's better, Godzilla or King Kong. And with that, I should jump back into the questions because I know your time's valuable and you got a birthday to celebrate. Aydin, have you done any research on the long-term effect of Kim's game, such as perpetual states of hypervigilance in veterans?
No, Kim's game I'm not familiar with, so I don't know that term, but I'll look it up. However, in terms of the hyper state of vigilance in veterans, yes. What we know, or at least at what I believe I know at PTSD, and again, this is something I talked to JF about, and he kind of made me rethink stuff, and I was like, oh God, is the research I'm reading all fucked up and wrong?
I know it exists, I can tell you that much.
Oh, it exists without question. The question about PTSD,
no, I mean the hypervigilance.
The hypervigilance stuff absolutely does exist. And it's essentially what happens is that when your brain starts overworking, this is my understanding, when your brain starts overworking for a long period of time, it actually affects the physical shape and size of certain parts of your brain. For example, the amygdala and the hypothalamus, which are the centers that process emotions and fight or basic emotions and fight, flight, freeze responses to stimuli, become physically affected when they are stimulated for a long-term period of time. That's what PTSD essentially is. That and the inability of the mind to recall memories properly, between the association of long-term stored memories and short-term stored memories. Because during periods of, this is what I have read. JF told me I was wrong, so I don't know. But what I have read is that basically when you are in periods where the hypothalamus and the amygdala are hyperstimulated, there is a disconnect between the hemispheres of the brain that causes information to be stored properly in the long-term memory processing centers incorrectly. The effect that this produces means that we tend to misattribute certain things that we perceive in our environment in any future instances based on the misattribution of these prior instances. In other words, it's why veterans have responses similar to being in a war situation when they hear fireworks go off. It's because the sensory data was misprocessed and stored. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. Hirios asks, what's the problem if you are Jewish/Pole?
Oh, some people just have a fucking problem with that. I'm not a Jew, though. I mean, as far as I know, unless like somebody in my mom's side. Now we do have a Torah in Hebrew in my house.
Wait a
And
minute.
when I was a kid, I thought we were Jews. I really thought my mom's family was Jewish. And then I realized it's because my grandfather was a Lutheran minister who went and he actually ministered in the Holy Land to try and convert Jews to Lutheranism.
Wait a minute. You don't have enough phlegm.
Oy
It's
vey.
the ta.
Torah. Well, I did, I have to say, I'll have to be completely honest. Not only do I have a Torah, I also read the Torah and the Septuagint, if you want to call it that, in Hebrew in college. In a class I had Hebrew through the Torah.
Holy shit.
And we
Yeah,
learned.
I as a young lad was a child prodigy preacher. I was ordained at 14, and
Whoa.
I started reading every religious book I could get my hands on.
Mm-hmm.
And man, that's a lot of bullshit packed into a lot of books. I'm not saying that I'm an atheist. I'm more of a spiritualist. It's one of the shamanic follow your own path thing.
Mm-hmm.
But you could see how people can control and influence masses by the crap that they put in some of those books, which I think directly dovetails into our next question. Who else likes psilocybin?
You know what? I've never had psilocybin, but it's something I would like to have,
Really?
to try at some point. Yeah.
I've
No,
accidentally
I'm a complete baby. I've smoked weed. That's it.
I've accidentally done acid and other hallucinogens for almost 2 years straight every weekend.
No, alcohol is my drug. Outside of that, I feel very hesitant to consume anything else.
Are you a happy drunk? Are you a mad drunk? Are you an introspective drunk?
Well, you've listened to my videos, you hear how fast I talk. Alcohol is a depressant, which means that it slows the brain down. So I use alcohol as essentially a way to keep my brain from overheating. In other words.
Okay. Garfos asks, we are just weirdo faggots on the internet. Are you me, cunt?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, we're the same person. That's metaphysically absurd, but yeah, sure.
Very, very. I am the walrus.
Cuckoo cuckoo.
Okay, I'm going to scroll down to see if we have any more question marks. Because you've been awesome all the way through this. I tell you what, while I'm doing the scroll, have you ever been in a situation where you knew intellect was not going to get you out of it, and you had to rely on some other type of social skill?
No, only because I think I'm socially retarded, and my way of dealing with everything is to try to be logical about stuff and to be like, "Hey, let's talk through it. Let's." And I realize I understand at this point that there are people that you just can't. You can't deal with them on a linguistic or psychological level or communication level. They are manipulating you on purpose, and you have to do it back if you want to survive. And unfortunately for me, I don't really get it. I think that it's my inability to get it. But again, it's this whole thing, and people can hate or like me for it either way. But I like to think I'm one of the most accessible skeptics and YouTube celebrities, which is what a horrible fucking phrase. That's 70 fucking thousand subscribers. I love you guys all, but that's the whole point. I'm not a celebrity. I'm just a person with a fucking microphone, for fuck's sake. Like, holy shit. That's such a weird perspective to me. I still see myself as a teacher at most. And
Well,
at the end of every lecture, when I was a teacher in the in a university, um in a hall or in a room talking in front of students, afterwards I'd stick around for 5 to 10 minutes and be like, well, you got something to ask? Fine. Email me, talk to me, you know, check it out, try it out.
well, and honestly, I don't think your videos are more based on skepticism as they are on dissection. And that's one of the things why I like listening to your videos, is because you present your question and then you dive into that question and basically fillet it. You figure out, it seems to me that when I'm listening to you, that we're going through the discovery process,
Yeah,
whereas
we
you're
go through the
not,
process of inductive reasoning, yes.
yeah, where you're not slamming down a Bible and said, this is it because Jesus said so.
Yeah, I basically go through the entire inductive. I basically take everybody else with me through my inductive reasoning process. That's it. And you can agree or disagree. I don't care. This is just my thought process.
And I'll be honest, that basically is a way of discovery for other people, because it's not, here's my opinion, this is how it goes, and you need to follow along just because I believe this. Yours is more of a journey of, hey, here's some things I found about this question that led me to believe this. And I don't think there's a lot of that out there. There's a lot of raging. There's a lot of, I can only use the word ministering, where people are proselytizing about any type of subject or belief. And I think that's doing a disservice to anyone out there who's actually on their path, and, not to get all religious, but trying to find true enlightenment, because true enlightenment can be found not only through faith, but through intelligence and dissection of the facts.
Right. And what I try to do as someone who I just like reading and learning for learning's sake. Again, my basic process is I have a question and then I try to answer it through extant research. And I don't think everyone does that. And by the way, it's hard. Again, I have to come into it saying, look, I'm biased as fuck. I do have biases, of course I do. But I do my best to try and be as honest as possible and to try and help people who are watching it to come to their own conclusions, because I can only provide you data. I can't provide you with an answer. As I said now a couple hours ago, I'm sure an hour and a half ago, this is not a proving game. We have to remove that word prove from our lexicon. at the very beginning. This is about providing evidence, not about proving.
Well, and unlike genders, it is a vast spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm going to try to finish these up because I know you got things to do. Jason Phillips asks, have you ever read Psychology and Religion by Jung?
Yes, I actually am a pretty big proponent of Jung, even though a lot of his research has been contested or his suggestions have been contested. I think Jung actually, in his not just in that, but in his general understanding of the collective unconsciousness, tapped into something that he even at the time did not understand, that is actually real.
I
That there
agree.
is a collective unconsciousness.
Yeah, I agree with that. It makes perfect sense, especially in today's society where you have to stand back, and
Mhm.
there's less subjectivism to it. Okay, let's see here. Thoughts on Liberia?
I don't have any particular thoughts on Liberia.
Neither do I. No. Next one. Like a handgun social skill. Daily Strike, I have no idea what you're talking about, but it does have a question mark on the end of it. Do you believe, Aydin, in handgun social skills?
I believe I'm a staunch, extreme, First and Second Amendment absolutist. So yes, I guess handgun and social skills, I guess, combined there, first and second.
Favorite gun?
I don't actually own any guns of my own.
If
But,
you could, what would you?
Seiko Finlight
Really?
308. Yep.
See, I'm a wheel gun guy, so I'm
I got
always,
a real boner for bolt action rifles.
yeah, but you have gone out and fired weapons, right?
Oh hell yeah!
Okay.
I usually only fire 20. My frame is tiny, so I usually just fire 22s because they're easy for me. Anything over a 22 or a 9 mil, it starts to be. I fired Sinatra's AR-15 and his Scorpion, and it was like, oof, that's a lot. I mean, I could do it, but the problem is there's too much kickback on my arm, and then I pull up instinctively, and then it jams the weapon, and that's problematic in a real way of them having to unjam the weapon.
You got to get him to take you out to a range where you can fire a 50 cal sniper rifle.
We've been out there. We've been out to the range. The problem is that it's not anything else. It's my body and my. I think that this is okay. So we're finishing up here, but here's an interesting thing. I'm a lifetime member of the NRA and the GOA.
Okay.
I don't legally own a firearm. I think that for people like myself, I respect firearms to a very extreme degree, and it's because of my respect of understanding how incredibly deadly they can be, and understanding the safety that is necessary to operate a firearm. That it also makes me very afraid. Not afraid. That's not right. It makes me go, oh fuck, I hope I don't screw up. Do you know what I mean? Like, I hope that I don't.
Yeah.
I hope that I don't, in any way, do something that would misfire, right?
Sure.
So I get very nervous about that. Do I illegally own one? It's my dad's, okay?
Wait a minute.
Come on.
Can we just say no? Or it's none of your goddamn business?
It's none of your goddamn business. It's none of your goddamn business. But no, my we're all cool. It's actually the U.S. law allows for it. It's the passing down of weapons. So like the weapon doesn't even exist according to U.S. law. It's that old. It's from like World War II.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. My granddad's gun.
But yeah, Second Amendment definitely. I'm a fan of myself. Let's see here. And honestly, this can go on as long as you want to, but I know you got stuff to do, so I'm going to try to pound through this as
Sure
quickly as
thing.
I
Pound
can.
through them super chats or just chats.
Oh yeah.
Fuck yeah.
I think I remember you saying that you voted for Trump, which that was a yes. If this is true, then is that because autists are honorary men?
Did I vote for Trump? Yes. I was a hardcore Trump supporter from fairly early on. Now, you walk into my house, if you were to look at what I look like, dyed hair, stupid little tiny woman. I'm wearing a Sailor Moon t-shirt. You would be like, that woman is a Hillary supporter. Nay, nay. You walk in my house, I've got my 2 different Trump hats. I've got the 45th, excuse me, wow, symbol sign. Actually, that one's in a box right now, but then I've got the regular MAGA hat. I've got my Donald Thump plushie. I've got a signed picture of the Donald. I love Trump, even though I don't agree with him all the time, and I think he's fucked up a whole bunch. I love his kind of idea.
See, I would have said not Hillary, but Feinstein.
Oh, no.
Well, there were more colored heads with Feinstein and Bernie than there were with Hillary.
Well, I'm a hardcore Trumper.
Well, no, I'm not bringing that into doubt at all. Because that's not a bad thing. Anybody who's ever listened to a Sinutra stream knows. And let's see here. Oh, Zach, of course. She already answered that question. So you illegally own one?
No, it's my dad's, and it's not even at my apartment. Oh no, I shouldn't say that, but like, I have access to a what's it called? A grandfathered in weapon, a Luger. Yeah.
Well, if you're living in West by God, then that is definitely not a right. It's a necessity.
Well, West by God is in my opinion, the best state in the country, and I don't give a shit how much of a piece of crap it is. But basically, like, the gun doesn't exist. It's a World War II gun. My dad's always been like, take it, and I've always been like, I feel nervous about having a gun in my house, only because, not actually for any other reason other than the fear of being swatted, actually. I remember one time, right when I was first doxxed, I walked up to the door with my airsoft gun, and because I was thinking, oh, these motherfuckers, they're gonna try and fuck with me, and I realized, never do that. Never, ever, ever walk up to the door with a fake gun if you think you're being swatted.
Yeah, that's kind of a good idea. That's general love. Now,
it's a PSG-1 too. It's what I have. A fake PSG-1.
Now the rifle that he gave you, I'm sorry, I think I might have missed it.
Oh, it's not a rifle, it's a Luger. No, my dad's, it's a
pistol,
a Luger.
Okay. Now, is it a German issue, Luger?
I think my grandfather stole it from some Nazis.
That's what I was going to say. The first time that I ever ran into one, my best friend at the time, his grandfather came back with, and this is not propping up the Nazis, but they had some of the most beautiful daggers and weapons.
I've only seen this gun. It's been offered to me, but I believe that my granddad took it off of him. Yeah.
Oh yeah, because that's the only way you get them. And he had, and here's the funny thing too. I think that a lot of leftists don't get that these were headhunter trophies.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, oh well, if you own a Nazi armband, then you're a Nazi. It's like, I killed the Nazi and I took the armband.
Well, my fucking granddad has a Purple Heart, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the same as somebody.
Think he's allowed to take their. I don't know where the gun came from. My dad was just like, "Do you need a gun?" And I was like, well, I don't know if they're gonna let me have one. And I was like, and he's like, here, just take this. I was like, oh, I don't know.
Well, it's all chronicles of Riddick. You know, you kill the man, you take what they own.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, I did have a sci-fi question for you.
Sure.
Have you watched Babylon 5 yet?
Yep.
Okay. In ranking in the sci-fi space opera pantheon, where does it fall as far as, and we're just going with TV?
Babylon 5.
And you better answer right or I'm never asking you back.
Oh no. Okay. Babylon 5 is one of those series that had the ability to really go to some extraordinary places, but either because of cost or because of lack of interest, just didn't have, or actually, I think more accurately, it had too much competition. Babylon 5 was a really brilliant piece of media. It just, for whatever reason, in the time in which it existed, it just didn't take off. Do I think it holds up to DS9, which is, of course, the obvious comparison? I think DS9 is better.
Well, and here's the thing too. You know that they settled out of court, right?
Yeah.
I still think the thing that hurt Babylon 5 the most was the fact that they told him, okay, they were getting close to the end of the fourth season. It's like, that's it. We're not going 5 years. So they had to cram everything in.
Yeah. The last season is particularly very rushed.
Yeah, I could not watch season 5 and still be okay with it, except for the final episode. That shit makes me tear up every single time.
Oh, I understand. I've got episodes and things like that.
and yeah, as far as I get, well, okay, this follows into a sub question. Which Star Trek was the best Star Trek?
Okay, so this
I
is
know what you're gonna say.
No, hang on. I have to give you my listing, which upsets some people. TOS, the original series, is number 1. That is followed by TNG. DS9 and Voyager. DS9 is the next, and then Voyager, and Enterprise doesn't count, and then everything else is shit.
Well,
and I love Voyager, but I think that Voyager is the last and the ones that count.
Ma'am, would you please step out of the car? We're gonna have to ask you to walk this line.
Oh no, TOS is the TOS is
Voyager.
The best?
Having any love for Voyager, and my wife literally will walk over to my computer if I'm watching a Voyager and turn it off because she hates Mrs. Columbo.
Oh, I think it's great because Janeway is a terrible driver. She's a completely accurate representation of a female pilot. She's terrible. She's absolutely awful. And I love Janeway, but she's so bad. She's such a bad captain. It's great. I think it's very woke.
Yeah, I think there are many times whereas you can see Chakotay just kind of rolling his eyes.
No. You don't want to know what hang on. We're gonna have to finish this because we're over 2 hours. But let me tell you right now, Robert Beltran, the guy who plays Chakotay, is a piece of shit. You do not want to look into what a fucking goddamn asshole he is.
Oh, I never have, but you can, give me at least 1 or 2 brief highlights.
He used to brag about the fact that he didn't read the scripts before he walked into the set. He in fact went on to some I don't remember which, but he was on some interview show where he was bragging and was about the fact that he didn't read the scripts and was disparaging Robert Picardo, the guy who plays the Doctor, and Kate Mulgrew. And he was like, these assholes, they come in here all prepared and stuff, and talking shit about them for reading their scripts beforehand. He actively has said he hated the show. He hated being on it. He is the one. They were supposed to be a romantic sort of thing between him and Kate Mulgrew. He destroyed that. And in fact, he said he even boycotted, said he would void his contract for the 7th season if he didn't get to make out with Jerry Ryan, 7 of 9. So guess what happened in the 7th season? He got to make out with 7 of 9. And the 3 years of character development that we had seen between Robert Picardo's The Doctor character and 7 of 9 erased, literally vanished because Robert Beltran decided to throw a fucking fit. Fuck Chakotay and fuck Robert Beltran. I hate him. I really hate him. I don't hate a lot of people. I really don't like you, Robert Beltran.
Well, then I guess that's probably the reason why he was rolling his eyes, because he just wanted to get the hell off the set.
Oh yeah, he hated it. He actively said he didn't like Star Trek. He thought it was for nerds and stupid people. He didn't like it. Yeah.
Yeah, when, most of the intellectuals right now that are into space exploration and the hard sciences are people who were inspired by Star Trek.
Beltran just didn't have any respect for the thing he was walking into. Whereas, like, Janeway, Kate Mulgrew, they did.
Well, I think, I don't know. I'll be honest with you. I have to rank Babylon 5 as my favorite, but TOS definitely, if we're going just with Star Trek, TOS did more with what they could. And even the more scary thing, their SJW parallels were amazing to what they're trying to do right now, but they did it in such a different way where it was a better influencer.
Look, I don't actually have a problem with progressivism, such as it is. I don't have a problem with people promoting their ideas. The issue is when it's inescapable, that it becomes a sort of overwhelming cultural gestalt that you can't escape.
True.
And Star Trek was always like a window into a future like that, right? Of a progressive future in many ways, and that's fine. But yeah, I don't know.
Okay, well, I tell you what, we have held you for over 2 hours. Let me ask you the one final question before I do the thanks and the outro. If you were a professional wrestler, what would be the music theme you'd use to walk to the ring for your match?
It's going to be Always Hardcore by whoa shit, what's the band called?
I don't know.
It is I'll send it here. Play it. Scooter 1, Always Hardcore. I'm gonna play it to you. You should use it to play out the thing. Let me send it to you in the side chat. I think you probably won't get in trouble for it. It's this. It's Scooters 1, Always Hardcore. It's a German band. Probably fine.
Yeah, because we've done 8 episodes and haven't got struck yet, but
Try this.
And what do you think your finishing move would be?
Pleading for forgiveness.
I missed that. What?
Pleading for forgiveness.
Oh, go on the Jim.
I'm sorry, I'm white.
Very
I'm
nice.
sorry, I'm gay. Wait, what? Oh shit!
Hey, this is kind of a good song.
It's great, isn't it?
I have not heard Scooter before. I'm gonna have to listen to a couple more once we get off here.
They're awesome, yeah.
And with that, I would just like to say we're doing the outro, folks. So please go ahead and do that electronic round of applause over in the chats. Please do thank our guest, Aydin Paladin, not an autist, but an academic scholar on the YouTubes. Go listen to her and make sure, check the descriptions in the chat. There is a Twitter. There is a YouTube. There's definitely a Patreon, and there's a Streamlabs. Make sure and support Aydin because she's making the content that you like. And if you didn't like it, you wouldn't be here. So put those hands and feet together. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, we'd like to thank you very much for coming out tonight, for rolling with Sisyphus. Thanks for finding us on this weird, obscure channel. And once again, Aydin, you've been a pleasure to interview.
Oh, yeah, anytime, my dude.
You are welcome back anytime, and all hail Blue Whale.
All hail that blue whale.
Crew be thy name, everybody.
Crew
Good
be
night.
under his holes.